This is K2 News at 5 on your side.
Parents and guardians need to have confidence that they will not have to risk their children's health for the sake of their learning, or their learning for the sake of their health by sending kids back to school.
Health and education leaders in Oregon announced new guidelines for bringing students back into the classroom. This comes as several of the state's biggest districts say they'll be operating online only through at least November. Good evening. Thanks for being with us, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn.
And I'm Lincoln Graves in for Deborah Knapp. In the last hour, we have heard from a number of the major districts in our area about what the school year will look like. We have live team coverage beginning with K2's Kelly Ozier. Kelly, you've been digging into those plans, and we now know that all will at least start with distance learning?
That's exactly right. And the districts that we are talking about are Portland Public Schools, Hillsborough, Beaverton, and Salem-Keizer. All have just released their plans just within the last hour. So now we know, according to all of those districts, that students will not be in the classroom for at least the first 2 months of school. Now, here's a big question for a lot of our families out there. When will school start? Well, here you go. Portland Public Schools is first up, starting on September 2nd. Then on September 14th, it will be Beaverton, Hillsborough, and Salem-Keizer. All districts say in mid-October they will reassess to see if a November return to the classroom and teaching is safe. But they all say if it's not, it's possible students won't return to a regular classroom setting until 2021. Now, that also means that starting in September, your students will once again do distance learning, but it's not the same as what we saw in spring. This is called comprehensive distance learning, and it means students will get grades, attendance will be taken each day, and there will be more teacher instruction. And for high schoolers, they will get credits. Now, the big takeaway from all of this is that the districts will not be the same as we saw in spring. As you remember, back in spring, just a few months ago, it was really brought upon teachers and districts almost overnight. They say that they have made a lot of changes. Now, we have more information on other districts that have already announced their plans. You can head over to KATU.com to the Return to Learn tab and find out more about other districts' plans and more details on these plans. But coming up at 6 o'clock, what will a typical day look like for our students, and how much of this is falling on parents? I know that's a big concern out there. We have answers for you at 6 o'clock. Reporting live in North Portland, Kelly Ozier, K2 News.
We'll see you back here at 6, Kelly. Thank you. And as you mentioned, the upcoming school year remains in flux for some school districts. Governor Kate Brown released new metrics that are tied to coronavirus cases, and those numbers could change before the school year actually starts. K2's Lachey Wesley live in Southeast Portland with that side of the story. You've been hearing from teachers. How are they feeling about all this, Lachey?
Well, they tell us that they really just wanted some clarity. They wanted to know if they would be returning to classrooms or if they would be teaching from their homes. Governor Kate Brown released new metrics for school districts Tuesday. For your students to return to buildings, cases must be low and the percent of positive COVID-19 tests must also be low. The metric is designed to help school districts judge if it is safe for students to return to classrooms. I asked health officials what school districts even meet these metrics.
Right now, there's one county that would meet the criteria for reopening schools to in-person instruction, with the exception of our statewide positivity not being down for below 5% for 3 weeks. But we know that there are many more counties, about 13, that would meet the criteria under the exceptions to bring back in-person instruction for our kindergarten through third grade students who would most benefit from this instruction.
Teachers are pushing for a decision. Alex Freeman is a Spanish immersion teacher with Portland Public Schools. He's also a parent and says he's trying to prepare for multiple scenarios.
At this moment, what I think is the safest thing for our students and our families is to go back to a distance learning model.
We did hear from the Oregon Education Association today, and they tell us that they do agree with the governor's decision focusing on these metrics. Live in Southeast Portland, Lachey Wesley, K2 News.
All right, Lachey, thank you. Happening right now, both Portland Public Schools and the Salem-Keizer School District are about to start meeting to discuss their latest plans with regard to the new school year. Both are streaming online and they're open to the public. We have links to the meetings posted at katu.com/return to learn.
A new single-day high for the number of deaths reported in Oregon from the pandemic. Health officials announcing today 14 people have died, including the youngest victim so far, a 26-year-old man in Yamhill County. That means the total number of deaths in Oregon has now surpassed 300. 342 new confirmed or presumptive cases were also announced today, with the highest caseload in Umatilla County. Health officials in Clark County reported 37 new cases today, but it's one of a few counties in Washington with case numbers trending down or plateauing, according to the Department of Health, though officials say it's difficult to tell right now whether the numbers reflect true decreases or if delays in testing are impacting case counts. Meanwhile, deaths continue to rise in eastern Washington and appear to be increasing in western Washington for the first time since March.
Now to some developing news tonight. The Associated Press is reporting a White House official says the Trump administration has started talks with Governor Kate Brown's office and said it would withdraw federal agents from Portland if the state stepped up its own enforcement. The White House official, who didn't want to be named, said the talks are in the early stages. We've reached out to Governor Brown's office. We'll let you know as soon as we hear back.
Today, several Oregon Senate Republicans sent a letter to the governor saying her inaction in Portland has made the city an embarrassment to the state and the country. The letter reads, quote, "We are disturbed by the blatant refusal to respond and your determination to put law enforcement officers and Oregonians in danger by siding with violent anarchists." It continues, "When violence and law-breaking happens, it is up to elected officials to support the infrastructure we have in place and to protect citizens, including law enforcement. The failure to uphold the law as an elected official is a direct attack on public safety." We have reached out to the governor for comment, have not heard back yet.
Since when is it okay to try to burn down a federal court? If someone went down the street to the Prettyman Court here, that beautiful courthouse we have right at the bottom of the hill, and started breaking windows and firing industrial-grade fireworks in to start a fire, throw kerosene balloons in and start fires in the court, is that okay? Is that okay now? No, the U.S. Marshals have a duty to stop that and defend the courthouse, and that's what we are doing in Portland. We are at the courthouse defending the courthouse. We're not out looking for trouble.
That is U.S. Attorney General Bill Barr on Capitol Hill today, testifying before Congress and defending the federal law enforcement response to the unrest in Portland. He said violent rioters and anarchists have hijacked legitimate protests sparked by George Floyd's death, wreaking senseless havoc and destruction on innocent victims.
The current situation in Portland is a telling example. Every night for the past 2 months, a mob of hundreds of rioters have laid siege to the federal courthouse and other nearby federal property. The rioters have come equipped for fight, armed with powerful slingshots, tasers, sledgehammers, saws, knives, rifles, and explosive devices. What unfolds nightly around the courthouse cannot reasonably be called protest. It is, by any objective measure, an assault on the government of the United States.
He also called on all lawmakers, regardless of political view, to condemn the violence against federal officers and the destruction of federal property.
You've heard the argument from both protesters and some city officials saying that the presence of federal officers actually is making matters worse, not better.
This is coming up tonight, new at 6 and only here on KATU, a one-on-one conversation with Head of Homeland Security Chad Wolf on the demonstrations in Portland and the role of federal officers, what he says about claims the feds are escalating the situation, and how long he's willing to keep federal forces here. Again, that's coming up tonight at 6, only here on KATU.
You don't rush unrefined and unvetted proposals into a charter.
The Portland City Auditor accuses City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty of what she calls a misinformation campaign to overhaul police oversight in Portland. The accusation comes ahead of tomorrow's council vote on sending the issue to the voters. KATU's Wright Gazaway is live outside the Portland Police Bureau downtown. And Wright, the police union has some serious concerns about this as well.
They do, Link, and the independent police review right now currently investigates claims of officer misconduct or citizen complaints. The city auditor and the PPA say this current push to revamp it is rushed. The Portland City Auditor says Commissioner Joanne Hardesty's proposal to allow voters to overhaul police oversight is breathtaking. Among Hardesty's ideas, she wants the new oversight board to be its own standalone agency that takes 5% of PPB's annual budget. Right now, it falls under the city's elected auditor. The council is expected to vote tomorrow whether to send the proposal to the ballot for voters to decide in November. The union, representing Portland's rank-and-file officers, outlined 4 concerns in a letter this week. The association is concerned Hardesty's proposal breaks city law, sets up an agency outside of any bureau, is carelessly written, and includes no input from stakeholders. The auditor agrees on at least some of those points. We asked about its legality. Are you concerned this proposal violates either city or state law?
I don't know if it does. I don't often agree with the Portland Police Association, but in this case, they've raised a lot of valid concerns, and I would hope that all of them would be fully vetted with the city attorney's office before something is referred to the ballot.
We reached out to Commissioner Hardesty's office to get her response to these concerns. We were told she was unavailable today. There are complaints that the IPR has no teeth as it's currently made up. The auditor acknowledges that the board needs to be fixed. She says city leaders should do that, though, through addressing city code and not amending the city's charter. We're live in downtown Portland. Right, Gazaway, KATU News.
Right, thank you. And tonight, the Portland Police Association is also calling for an immediate investigation into recent comments made by Commissioner Hardesty. In an interview with Marie Claire magazine, she suggested police were lying about damage caused by demonstrators or even starting fires themselves to justify their actions against the protesters. Hardesty later apologized for the comments, but the PPA president, Daryl Turner, says making those comments knowing they were false violated her oath of office, and furthermore says Hardesty cannot be trusted. Right now, Commissioner Hardesty is taking part in a virtual town hall about the protest, among other things, with Representative Earl Blumenauer. We are listening in to see if she addresses any of the recent controversies. We'll bring you the very latest tonight on KATU News at 6. And still ahead at 5 tonight, ending systemic racism in Oregon. The specific proposals laid out today, from reforms in policing to housing.
Plus, a dangerous and potentially deadly effect on the pandemic. We look at how the virus is driving a surge in eating disorders, Dave.
And finally, some relief from the heat, but for how long? I've got your forecast all coming right up.